Hello, friends. Welcome to A Little Room for Healing, where we aim to create a little more room in the world for authentic connection, insightful healing, and a deeper understanding of our hearts, ourselves, and each other through honest conversation. My name is Joel. I'm a Reiki and 13th octave Laho Chi practitioner, a facilitator for deep healing, and your host. Today I'm joined by Hanna Bernstein LMFT. Hanna is a psychotherapist and healer entranced by the intersection of mysticism and evidence-based practices. She has done extensive work in trauma therapy and crisis intervention with a special focus on consent ruptures. She is currently working with former guest of the podcast, Val, on a course in embodied listening. On this episode, we spend time working through a block I feel regarding our connection. After I do a distance Reiki session on her, we find ourselves in a captivating conversation where we blur the lines of science and mysticism. Are the things we experience real or imagined? And if they assist our healing, does it really matter? Thanks for joining. Come on in. Hello, friends. I am back with another episode with a guest of A Little Room for Healing. And I know it's been a while since I've had a guest on the podcast, but I have returned with one, and I'm looking forward to the conversation with her. Her name is Hanna, as was introduced in the intro. Hey, Hanna, how are you doing?
I'm well. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. It's wonderful to have you. It's wonderful to be back into this guest podcast realm. It's been a long while since I've had a guest. It's been a couple months since I've actually did the act of interviewing or talking, having a conversation with someone on the podcast. And you're the first one. So exciting. Let us do what we do and start with check-ins so that we can be more tuned to what's going on with each of us in the space. I will go first, and then I'll pass it over to you. Well, first off, I am feeling there are nerves. There are definitely nerves in my body coming back into a podcast with a guest. I'm feeling the nerves and almost like, have I forgotten how to do it? Mm. So that's present in me. And I'm also feeling spacious and relaxed. There's one thing that's been happening recently, which is I'm working with my eyelid. My right eyelid has been spasming and twitching for 5 weeks straight, a couple breaks during the day, but pretty much most of the day it's twitching. And I've been working with that and also this nerve pain that's been shooting down my arm. So in working with that and also talking to some of my friends about it, I've come to the conclusion that it's an ancestral thing. So I got this thing going on, and it's a bit discomforting. Mm. So that's present as well.
Which arm?
My right. Everything's on my right side. Like my face feels a little tight here. This is twitching, and my nerve ending down my arm is.
And what meaning do you make of that?
It's what I came to a few days ago, and then also back again today, the both times I worked on it and looked at it with two different people, is it's ancestral on my father's side that has to do with this, what do I want to say? This, this belief that they have, or this holding that they've been holding on to. And it seems to be what we came to today is like five generations back. And for 5 generations, they've been holding tight to this belief. And the sentence is, nothing will ever work out.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Mm. And I am on the verge of I'm having the belief come in that, no, it's going to work out, which is I'm filling and then giving them, giving the ancestors evidence that I can hold not only the feeling that they're trying to prevent me from feeling, which is the full feeling of nothing will ever work out so I can move it, but also give them evidence that I can hold that it will work out. And I'm in this process of helping them see that so that they will just leave.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a little more inquiry here. I know we're doing check-ins, but do you mind if I follow my curiosity first?
Let's go.
Okay, cool. I imagine with the fact that you're so experienced in energy work, you've played around a little bit with different frames for body mapping.
Tell me more. Well, talk to me more about body mapping because I don't.
Sure. So, like a really simple
I've
one
never
most of us have access to is like the chakra system, right? A lot of us are familiar with that as like a kind of body mapping. Or in acupuncture, you're going to get a different tradition of body mapping and what different things indicate. One of my frames is the Kabbalic tree of life and how that fits onto the human body. And there's an indication within that frame that the right arm has something to do with our generative force and the way we act upon the world. So to me, the story you're sharing about the ancestral trauma does feel like it has to do with something to do with action. I don't know if it feels that way to you.
I mean, that makes total sense. I think it fits in with the nothing will ever work out because it's whenever it's always enveloped in whenever I'm putting out an action into the world that I have a lot of passion for, or and if I look back at my dad, and I actually don't know much about post or pre-dad, but even my dad, like there's an action that he really wanted to put in the world, but this belief of nothing will ever work out prevented him from following through on it.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like a palpable, like a holding back?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I love frames like this. I have a left side thing.
What is it?
I have a left side thing.
You feel like shit?
So in my body, the way I hold pain and tension, I almost never feel any perceptual pain on my right side. That just seems to work for some reason. But my left side holds a lot of like nerve pain and things, and like often my left shoulder. So in the same tradition, that would have more to do with kind of like generosity, generative giving or nurturing, and also our capacity to receive that. The mother a little bit more. So crunchier for me there. Yeah.
Interesting. I can feel like our two sides wanting to meet and be like, yeah, we're doing our thing. Ooh.
Yeah. I also make up that there's something really powerful about intuitive people who are interested in healing, who've had different gendered experiences in the world, sharing energy, because we do hold on to, I think, different parts of collective trauma.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm excited for a little healing today.
Happy to have you. So, would you like to do your check-in now?
Yeah. So I'm present to a sensation I might call aliveness. Like I'm definitely feeling the upregulation in the nervous system, but for me, it's like a really welcome effect rather than anxiety or nervousness. It's almost like for me, in my morning, I was feeling a little bit lower energy, like just slow, lethargic. So for me, coming into a space with like a little more aliveness almost feels like correct. Like I feel very calm right now. It's good for me.
Great.
And then I'm trying to think of if there's like life stuff present here with me. There's some of it. There's been some heaviness in my week. Yeah, I feel inclined to name. There have been a couple of public figures who have been important to me, like intellectually, who've had kind of like public reckonings in the last 3 weeks. And it's just been a thing I've been sort of like tracking. I've been watching the discourse around it. I've been feeling a little sad. Yeah, it just feels like thematically there and in other spots in my life, there's this feeling like light is being shown into darkness, and almost like, I don't know, you ever like shine a flashlight in the woods and see all the like bugs scatter?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that. It's like, it's a little yucky, but like maybe it's good. I don't know.
What? Who are the public figures? If you feel like sharing
For me, the things I'm paying attention to are something that happened in the legacy of the author Alice Munro, who was a pretty famous short story writer, now deceased, and also Neil Gaiman, who's very much alive.
what's happening with Neil Gaiman?
A podcast came out a few weeks ago by, I think, Tortoise Media, that had been like really long form investigative journalism with two, I'd say, pretty credible accusers of sexual impropriety against him. And then in the aftermath, another person came forward, and it looks like more is happening.
Wow.
Yeah. For me, what kind of clicked into like, oh, this is a big deal, was reading like in his own words his defense, and just thinking to myself, like, those actions alone, the ones you're admitting to, are not the way that like people I respect conduct themselves. And I can be kind of a moral perfectionist. Like, it's something my friends will point out in me. But I also think there's ideas around good conduct and consent and recognition of power imbalances for good reason. I think they can be protective.
Mm-hmm. What is there? What's the hard line with your moral standards? Is people have to be perfect, or are your friends like, you don't leave any room for any mistakes?
It's useful for me to meditate upon the perfection of imperfection, because I would prefer a world without mistakes. But it's really, really useful for me to like make a little space for my own humanity and other people's humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And to address like the messiness of human desire and how we can get mistaken and our blind spots. Like, I have those too.
Yeah.
But like, there's some things where we have, as a society, have kind of like put our badge on the table and been like, the buck stops here, like not causing injury to children, for example, but, and I like that we have hard lines like that.
Yeah, I'm into that hard line.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like sexual abuse in general, I'm not too into.
Same.
I'm not into it at all. I'm not even into it a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
But the question of like, what do we mean when we say abuse? And what if two people are viewing it differently? And what do we mean when we talk about consent? Like, these are all really interesting, nuanced areas for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's with me.
I am wondering how this holding of the moral code, if you will, relates, if any, to what you were saying about your left side.
Yeah, so I can play with that. I can extend that. But I want to say first, yeah, it feels important to me to have a caveat here that something like, when I do this kind of work where I'm looking at emotions and how they might be carried in the body, I hold it kind of experimentally. Like, I look at it as, there's sensation and then the thoughts that arise in my interpretations when I have that sensation. But I've seen those stories shift. So I know I'm not like stating like an absolute truth when I talk about these things.
Sure.
But I've also found it really useful to play in that space of consideration and metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly when I spend time with this intensity, I often feel in my left shoulder, I think about the proximity of that area to my heart and my throat. Like I kind of make up a story that there's difficulty in like speaking from my heart, especially from like the wounded feminine perspective. Like I can think of times, like as I was talking before about the left arm being sort of like generosity, generous giving, times in my life when I've chosen generosity, chosen to overextend, and then really felt like dropped or even harmed when I go out on a limb in that way. And also times I've tried to speak up about pain and had my reality really denied and learned like it's safer, at least for those times, to hold back or keep those things to trusted people, to private spaces. And I think of the jaw as a place where we store rage. And I think there's some of that here too, where I'm like, mm-hmm. And also trying to be polite, holding myself back in that way.
It feels like, in regards to the jaw and holding rage there, that it's also connected to your throat.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that's true. Yeah.
Definitely in the thought that if you are feeling, definitely, I've heard this from many women, not able to really give out all your emotion, not really be able to be like, hey, I'm angry right now, or because then you're automatically deemed, oh, she can't control her emotions. And so your throats are constantly just shut down by men in this world. And women too, and other women.
Yeah, or like the desire to belong. For me, often I do use my voice, and I've witnessed as I use my voice that it can be useful. Like I've even seen systems I've been a part of change because of ways I've spoken up, and that's been gratifying. But generally, as a pattern, when people feel criticized, even if they agree with your criticism and feel shame, they want to distance themselves from the intensity of that reckoning. So I do feel like there's a price I pay as an individual when I make that choice. And I'm discerning about when I make that choice. Or I try to be.
The choice to express.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There have also been moments when I've like erupted. Oh gosh, volcanic.
Yeah. Can't hold it in all the time.
But paradoxically, like when I think back on like the last 5 years of my life, I think I've gotten really good and practiced in like nonviolent communication, for example. The moment that comes to mind as like my most outspoken moment, I actually did around a really minor infraction with a really safe person. So it was almost like I felt the freedom to be as mad as I was about collective trauma in a minor situation with a minor infraction. Mm-hmm. And I look at that and I'm like, how funny we are as people.
Totally.
Yeah.
Was there something that you felt, was there a sense of safety that was in that particular situation that may not have been in another situation that allowed that to?
Yeah. I kind of felt like on some level, the space could hold my truth. I don't know.
Just the other day, I got on the phone with a friend, with Robin, her name's Robin, and I've had her on many times. And I was angry about something that had nothing to do with her, but I was talking to her like she was the one that uh, hurt me.
Mm.
I wasn't directly being like, you did this, but the way I was talking, because I was just like, oh, I feel safe to be angry. I was letting it out, and she's like, first of all, can we just acknowledge that you're projecting your anger onto me? Like, yes, yes, we can. I am doing that. I'm sorry. Anyway, that's what I thought of when you said that there might have been a little safety there.
Totally. Yeah. So yeah, I do experience in these moments where we like have that rage trigger. It's like, yeah, I fall into projection too. Sometimes it's like I'm bringing my whole history of that kind of wounding to the moment. And the person in front of me might be responsible for like 2% of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have this whole history of like, oh, this again? Why?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to name something that's coming up for me. And it has to do with two things. One, I realized that I didn't acknowledge in the beginning, like I wanted to, that we are on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So we are on Zoom for this episode, which is completely new. I'm used to having people in person with me. And also that we'll be doing distance Reiki later. But the thing that's coming up that's happening to me because of us being on Zoom and not being in person is I'm noticing a much deeper challenge of feeling you and being connected to you fully.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm finding it distracting.
Mm.
And I just want to say that and name that out loud. Like there's something about, am I looking in the right spot on the computer? Like all these things technical things are happening in my head that are like kind of adding a veil between me and you.
Mm.
I just wanted to mention that and say that out loud.
Thank you for sharing that. It's possible that's going on with me too, but I think because this is a format I have a lot of familiarity with, it's also like a zone of comfort for me. Um, I'm a licensed therapist and I often do telehealth. So I have entire years-long client relationships that mostly take place over Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I even do my weekly therapy session on FaceTime.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with a screen with my therapist, and I know, like I spent years in person with him though beforehand. So like I know.
Mm-hmm. So there's something about a wish to feel what it's like to feel me in person for that context.
Yeah, there's a wish of that. There's definitely a wish of that, but there's also, the thing that's distracting me is the technicality of it and these things that I don't normally have to think about when I'm really paying attention to someone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And really feeling into someone and hearing someone while being recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just naming it and talking about it is going to help move it a little bit.
Great. Yeah. Do you think anything else would help?
Nothing is coming to me on anything else other than at this moment seeing what happens now that it's named. Here's another thing that's coming up. So because there's that seemingly technological veil, I'm feeling self-conscious about whether I'm really understanding what you're saying to me or not. Ooh,
It's a little intense, actually, on my end. Wild that this is happening.
Mm.
On top of, we've only had one phone conversation before this ever.
Mm-hmm.
So
I have an inclination
what's
to share the responsibility with you. Like, I'm thinking to myself, like, that's all one explanation of why you feel disconnection. But like, what if I'm bringing something in persona, in being cagey about details, that's also contributing to that veil?
Oh, interesting.
That could also be true.
Does it feel like you're doing that?
I'm aware, as I'm often aware, that for me, I don't know if this is true for everyone, but for me, there's like such a layered world of thought that I have like privately, that to bring it, all of it forth in a conversation would just dominate too much airtime. So I am selective about the details I share. I think most of us are in conversation. There's like what's going on for me, what's going on for you, and then what unfolds in the conversation as a whole. So I've played around with like, oh, what's it like to name the edgiest thing, to like really feel the vulnerability of that, or I don't know, other poses. I'm trying to feel for something that's a little more centered than that. I hope authentic, but it's hard, to get to know the totality of a person. I don't think is possible, maybe ever. So we'll get some of it here, but not all of
Right. Yeah. I don't know if I'm looking for totality.
it. So, okay, how do you know when you're feeling someone?
How do I know when I'm feeling? I love that question. I really love that question. Thank you. How do I know when I'm feeling someone?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like I've locked into a zone with them that I've never been asked. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. What does it feel like? There's a distinct energetic connection and a feeling of being locked in, and this sense that while we will not get to the totality of each other, that there's a vulnerability that is present between us. Even if it doesn't necessarily feel 100% safe yet. It's just, it's there. And we can edge towards naming it and edge towards finding the bridge through it.
Yeah. Yeah, hearing that, I feel invited to deepen into maybe areas I feel less safety or something.
You feel invited by me for you to do that?
Yeah, because if you're naming that, it feels more real when I heard you say like something feels like not quite safe. There's an openness to it being experimental or not so polished or inventive. I don't know if I'm getting that right.
Well, it feels I'm not. It doesn't feel like I'm actually saying I'm not wishing for you to go to places that feel unsafe. I'm just saying when I'm really feeling someone, feel the potential for it. Not even saying that it has to happen. But I don't know but there's this technical thing that's also new to me in this scenario. So there's no like, I'm wanting to make sure that it doesn't feel like there's some sort of criticism coming from me.
No. I felt the invitation as a pleasant thing. And I'm really wanting the click to happen because I want it to be a good experience for both of us.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm really enjoying this.
Mm.
The click to happen. Hmm.
Where you feel locked in to a conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Locked into the conversation. I just also want to say that I'm appreciating what feels this exploration in some sort of friction static that's happening right now.
Mm.
I'm really appreciating that.
Mm.
And I also want to name that this isn't like a static or a friction that I'm like, oh, this person is nothing at all like that. It's just the kind of static of what's going on here? Why am I not able to do what I'm used to doing? And like, what is it in me? What am I doing? What am I holding back something? I feel a little tight, like around here.
Mm. I'm remembering that in our phone call before we decided to do this episode, we both named that in human design we're manifestors.
There's something.
Maybe.
You froze.
Uh-oh. You're frozen for me too.
Oh man. Because we're getting you're back.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. Something moved when you said that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to come back to the manifestor thing.
Mm-hmm.
What's coming up, what was coming up for me right before you said that was there's this what I am projecting I'm projecting something onto you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is you carry yourself you're a strong person. Like I feel like you I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm into. Like, I know, like, your field is what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And when I come across people that really know their field, I get self-conscious. And I start to clam up and close up and really like, oh my God, can I hang with this person? But I don't know how well you know your field. I just am getting this sense, this feeling. And then I think it might have to do partly with the manifestor in you too. That's like
maybe
initiating this in me and bringing this up in me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll share something with you that comes up when you say that. I had an experience a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, of being invited to be like a lead speaker in a group process in an arena I'm actually not that familiar with. And I talked in front of this group for like 15 minutes. And I got a lot of feedback that people liked what I had to say and what I shared. And there was a weird way in which I actually felt really destabilized by that. I was like, why in a space where I'm such a newcomer am I getting this feedback that I've been so impactful? Does that mean I'm in a space where I don't have things to learn from these people? And I think my sibling gave me the really apt feedback that being a good talker actually is just one component of life, and it can cover a lot of lack of knowledge. Like, I might be pretty good at self-presentation and eloquence, but that actually doesn't mean I know what I'm doing.
Right. Yeah, I hear that. That's so good. Well, when you give that example, that's when like the manifester part I feel is implemented, because as manifestors we have it's because we have a defined throat. So when we speak, it initiates things in the space around us. And so when you're up there and you're talking for 15 minutes, you're initiating this whole room of people to something's happening for every single person because of your defined throat center.
No one's ever said that before. I didn't know that about human design. So help me here. Is that true in any area we have definition, that when we engage it, we impact others?
I think so.
Okay. I have almost all defined centers.
Except for sacral.
Exactly.
Which other one?
Just nothing
sacral?
else.
Just sacral.
Yeah, I'm as defined as a manifestor can get.
Yeah, you are. That is literally the most defined a manifestor can get. I'm all defined except for sacral and root.
Oh, cool.
So when we come across people with defined sacrals, as you know, that impacts us because we then amplify their sacral energy, which we can't hold because we're not defined there, and we get warm fast. You're activating my root too.
What's that feel like?
That's the only thing that otherwise we're both defined everywhere. But since I'm not defined in my root and you are, I'm taking your root energy.
Okay.
And I think that is part of, that might be part of why I feel that may be part of what's going on here. I don't understand it fully. Because I'm still pretty new to human design.
Yeah.
But even these realizations are opening up something in the space for me. I have another friend who's a manifester, and I often feel like that with him.
Two repellent auras, right? That's the idea if we're to buy the system. Yeah. It's so interesting to me because in my life, I occupy a lot of different spaces. Like I can be kind of chameleon-like with my social groups. And I spend a lot of time in realms where human design would just be like discarded because it's based on birthdays, like astrology. And then if I'm willing to engage with the system, I like systems like this, and I'm talking to someone else who's willing to engage with the system, it's like it just explains so much of what's energetically going on. I'm like, how can you not find this interesting? It's so interesting.
Yeah, agreed. 100% agreed. I listened to this podcast. I haven't listened to it in a bit, but I listened to a lot of episodes. It's made by a manifestor for manifestors about manifestors. And she actually says that when two manifestors are together, they're not really affected by each other. Like they don't really initiate each other. But I don't know. I feel like I'm being like your presence is really bringing something up in me that I'm happy to be with. And I'm enjoying it. And like, I'm really appreciating this interaction very much.
Yeah. I'm glad you're having a good experience. Can I name a little bit of sadness that's coming up for me?
Yes.
So in my life as a person, if I look at my life from like an abstract outside of myself way, there's a lot to be grateful for. I have like good friends, meaningful work, interesting intellectual pursuits, creativity in my life, often a lot of interesting activities to do. But I think, more than the people around me realize, experience a lot of day-to-day loneliness. And I think part of the reason for that is the way you're experiencing me is the way a lot of people experience me. And I do think the people in my life like love me and find me meaningful to them, but they also like kind of come in for a deep dive and then take a long break. So like the people I know really well will see me sporadically, maybe like monthly or something. And part of that's like living in a city like Los Angeles. But I actually do feel like the people I want to be closest to often, while they care about me, need space from how much I shift them. And it's kind of a hard life path for me, someone who values intimacy, to like want to get closer, but have people be like, you're amazing. And this is like rocking my world. I need a little break, you know?
Yeah. I definitely feel the sadness in that you're feeling. I feel your sadness in it. I can see it.
Well, you're almost as defined as me. Do you have any similar feelings about your own life?
Hannah, I am so lonely. I actually just did an episode on loneliness. I did failure and loneliness. It was an episode I did while I was in Portland when we talked. And something that Robin, actually, I just talked about this story in my last episode, that Robin showed me something a week and a half ago about my chart that made me realize even more why I'm so lonely. And that is that my sun sign, I'm in something called conflict friction in my sun sign. And that's 70% of my energy system. And conflict friction means that I'm really particular about the people that I let into my sphere. So not only do I have this repelling aura like you do, I also am super particular about who I let into that repelling aura. And whenever I'm out in groups, it's like a wave of people just bouncing off of me. And I'm just really feel how alone I am in that. And I have such a hard time making friends. I have a hard time meeting people because of this.
Yeah.
I do like my friends. I will say that I don't necessarily get I need a break from you, Joel. I'm usually the one that's like, I need a break from you. So with that little switch, that little difference, I am often by myself and feel that loneliness.
Right. And I think you named that you have the hermit in part of your life path numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. What were yours again?
3-5. So I'm the martyr heretic, which goes back to that theme I was mentioning earlier of when I speak about my pain in a system like a heretic. The system might change, but I experience distance.
Can I name something? I locked in. I feel you now.
Yeah.
You shared this, and I was like, I feel that, and I get it, and understand it, and like there was this moment where like technology just went away for me.
Yeah, vulnerability is good for that, I think.
How does the sadness feel right now?
It's like tender in a way that has some warmth to it. It's like a bittersweet quality of, yeah, this is achy, but it's nice to be held. Got like a little bit of tears. Yeah. One thing I've found helpful is there are people in my life who I think live similar, kind of like big purpose, long range planning kind of lives. Like they have like some big karma to work out and take space for that and feel lonely on that path. And even if we're only touching in sporadically, like knowing other people have similar walks through life makes it feel a little less hard. And then I also have a lot of like habits of community in my life where I'll like show up in the same place every week. So that gives me some continuity too.
That's good.
I kind of need it.
Yeah. I need that too. I don't do that. I'm out in the middle of the woods. It's kind of why I have this draw of moving to out there to LA actually. New York City for a while. But there's this pull to move to LA to be around people more. And also a place I feel like I could build a energy healing practice.
Great.
I still don't know if I'd be able to do the weekly thing though.
Sometimes I don't either.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have your rest cycles, right?
That's what they say.
I'm getting the call to do the energy healing, to shift to that now. And want to know if you'd like to set an intention for it.
Yeah, it's something around like some heart healing, like something about what's being held in that left shoulder between the heart and the jaw and everything else. If that could lift even 5%, that'd be amazing.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. So we will be right back after Hannah's distance Reiki session. First time we're doing that. We'll be back. And we are back from Hannah's distance Reiki session. I am curious how it was for you, if you are open to talking about it.
I had a really palpable experience, like more vivid and clear experientially than I was expecting. I can think of like only one other moment in my life when I had like the degree of relief from neck tension that I had in this experience. And that happened when I was like 16. So it's like, whoa, it's like very interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was kind of like I was just sitting here, you know, kind of meditatively. And I felt myself moving very, very subtly, almost not by my own accord, just like these really like subtle neck shifts, like back and forth. And then at one point, like my hand went up to my heart without me noticing that I was doing it. And as these like very subtle movements were happening, it was like, yeah, layers of holding patterns I have, like tensions upon tensions. We're just kind of like, it's very cool. Very cool for me.
That's amazing. I love that.
Me too. It's nice. It's nice.
Any other, before I go into my experience of it, anything else that you'd like to share?
I mean, I had some memories and thoughts come up. I was very with other people, like specific people were in my conscious awareness. Some of whom you've interviewed, like at one point, Val was really present with me. Ash, Yvonne, certainly, Nicole.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel very connected to them. Yeah.
Oh, well, welcome and thank you to all of them for coming in and being part of it. That's so cool.
Mm.
I really feel strongly about all those people too.
Mm.
In a good way. I feel strongly about all of them.
And
That's
Jillian
cool.
too. I forgot.
Excellent.
Jillian.
Yes.
In the sinus. What did you experience?
I was just gonna ask if you were curious.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fun one for me. I had the experience of, it took me a few to really get tuned in, and then I started just holding your jaw like this for a bit, and then it was like the energy was saying, you're not holding one spot, Joel. This is not a hold in one spot and then move on to a next spot session. And energetically, it just started going boom, 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 and just smacking you, going like this, all over.
Mm.
And then I went, and then I went over here and I went, I like was just yanking and hitting and pulling things.
Mm.
And then at one point, it just popped. Mm-hmm. And it was like all these pieces were floating in your aura, in your energy field around you. Mm. And I was trying, I at first attempted to just wipe them away, and it wasn't working. So I called in the violet flame and burned all the things away that no longer served you. And once that was done, this bright light came in and just covered this whole spot, just so bright. It was like blinding. Mm-hmm. And then it moved and did your whole body. And then you like lifted and put you into this gel like cocoon to just hold you and set in the work that was done. Mm-hmm. And then I just afterwards, towards the end, I was just doing some minor things around the rest of your body, like bringing energy down to your feet and your lower back, and then thanked all of the people and beings that assisted us, and that was it.
Thank you to the beings. And thank you for being the channel.
Well, you're welcome. It's an absolute joy.
Mm.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. It's really cool. I've been having these experiences lately when I do Reiki in general, both distance and in person, where I start crying. Mm. Tears, and I'm yawning and I'm moving energy, and tears just start rolling down my face. And that happened again this time.
Mm. What do you imagine you're moved by?
Well, it depends. There are some instances where I hit a pocket of grief in the person that I'm working on, and it just starts like I'm moving it. I'm actually doing the crying. and they might be doing crying too, but I'm definitely doing crying and helping move the pocket of grief. This time it didn't really feel like pocket of grief. It just was just whatever the energy was layered and stuck in there. It was coming out through yawns and some tears on my end.
I had a little bit of tearfulness too. The moment you mentioned with the bright white light, I wonder if I felt that because there was a palpable moment in the sequence when I was feeling for like, okay, where are my usual holding patterns? I'm not feeling tension where I usually feel tension. And it was like this place that usually feels kind of like desiccated and stiff and almost broken was like full of something instead of being like dry. It was like flooded usefully, nicely. It's good.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Good.
Like new life.
Yeah, what's tricky though, I think, and this seems to come up for my clients too sometimes, is I had moments within that session of complete relief and feeling even better than neutrality, like really warm and connected. And then I come back to, here and now and open eyes, and I don't know, it's like I have almost come back into the habit of being a little bit tense immediately. I hate that. Do you experience that too?
Let's see. I do. I experience it mostly. Well, I don't really get much energy work done on me, so I don't have that as a reference point. But I know that when I work with plant medicine and I reach that pinnacle high, like a peak experience,
Yes.
and then I'm the next day or next week, as the medicine goes away and the energy of it goes away, and I'm back into just being in Joel, feeling the old patterns come back in again, except I have more awareness around them. And I know where I'm headed now. I've experienced that. So like something has shifted and something has broken apart.
Sure. Yeah.
Just the matter of integrating that peak experience into the day-to-day where it's still happening, but I'm like, I had to practice to approach it in the way that the peak experience allowed me to approach it.
Totally. As you said that, I could feel it again. And I'm like, okay, I want to bookmark this template of total calm, flooded with light, cocooned in goo. Yes. Yeah, I want that.
Yeah, the integration is the most important part, I think.
Well, why don't you get energy work done on you?
It's a great question. Why don't I do that? I'll tell you why. Okay, it's coming to me. Why don't I do that? I think it's the same reason why I have a hard time going to doctors.
Okay.
And dentists. And I do get a little bit here and there, but I mostly do emotional processing work, and that is what moves the energy. So I do that often with people and by myself. But there's a pattern in me, and there's a old story in me that I'm supposed to be in discomfort.
Okay.
So it's sometimes difficult for me to do the thing that's going to help me get out of discomfort.
Right. Yeah.
The only time that it's like is like emotional processing that I don't fuck around with. I do that with people whenever I can.
Right.
But doing that with friends and not spending money money block in it all too.
Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah, I tend not to pay for energy work either.
Amazing.
But I guess I'm blessed with friends who do it. I'll pay for like body work. I'll pay for like hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like a massage.
Well, I have a friend named Eric Allen who's like also kind of magic. You should interview him. He's great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's helped me a lot with like body work, but also I think just like trauma stuff, I guess, like really deep physical trust. I think he's good at being a safe facilitator for body blocks that are emotional as well.
I love that. What did you just say? Physical trust?
I don't know, maybe. Yeah.
I love,
Yeah.
I love that. He's good. He's so good at physical trust.
Or cultivating a space where it's possible or something like that for me.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks, Eric. So beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So important.
Mm-hmm.
So utterly important.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I opened up our talk by talking about the sense of like disappointment and people I've idealized, like the Neil Gaiman thing. And in my life, it's been so important to have almost like the healing template we just talked about, these pinnacle experiences where you know what perfect relaxation feels like having experiences of relational safety. Like now I know what that feels like. It's really useful to know what that feels like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like everyone deserves that. Or I think we run around accepting less than that in our relational life.
It's what, if we're going around accepting that in in our friendships and in our romantic relationships, even like that's the most, definitely the most common place that it happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's because we don't know anything else.
Yeah.
We haven't been shown yet enough. Maybe we've been shown a couple times, but we haven't been shown enough to break that pattern.
Yeah, I think that's right. Can you still hear me okay? I have like a mic and I put it on the floor. I forgot about it until just now.
I'm hearing you great.
Okay, good.
Yeah. There was something in our break. We took a little break after the energy healing session, and there was something in the break that there was a question. It's not here right now. It's like on the tip, but I can't find it again. Maybe it'll come. I usually find that when I name it, it comes like 10 minutes later.
Good. I want to talk about insights I had listening to your podcast, if I'm allowed to.
Sure.
So for me, it was a really cool experience to realize that within this space, a little room for healing space, you've done these deep dives with people I know pretty intimately. Yeah, like Val and Ash, especially, are people I see like every week of my life, and then to listen to them and others talk about whatever came up as they were like with you and open to the moment. I heard things from them and saw sides of them I've just never seen when I know them like day to day. It was really cool. So like, for example, Nicole in her episode talked about moving through like intense depression and having this awakening to like the possibility that there's like angels or helpful energies all around. And she would just kind of like recite that, like angels all around, angels all around. And I tried that on in like the few weeks since I've heard that. And it's just like, oh yeah, like when I feel sad, I can like just cultivate this idea that there's angels all around me. And like, what an awakening, what a joy.
Wow.
And I do something in my life where, because I guess I am still sort of an agnostic, even though I do a lot of mystic practices and I'm sure I look really spiritual to other people. I toggle back and forth between fully embracing and experiencing total faith in these concepts, like the possibility that angels are real, and looking for, like, okay, if this were just metaphor, if this were just a psychological construct, would it still be useful? And then, like, researching, pointing to studies, pointing to practices where we can see that that's true. So, for example, in EMDR, which is like a very evidence-based trauma treatment, eye movement desensitization therapy, which I've studied, which I have certification in. Within the manualized protocol, you instruct clients to imagine figures who can hold them in like a healing space. So, like, even within these very scientifically studied methods, cultivating the idea of supportive entities is like part of it. And yeah, that's tangential, but I find that very reassuring that like you're doing the same practices, whether you believe in them literally or not.
It's, would you say, I'm so bad at, like, when it comes to an actual word of describing something that I always forget. Like the sugar cube, what is that?
Sugar cube.
Like when
like placebo.
Placebo. Is it like a placebo effect type of thing?
Sure. Yeah, we can call it that. We can call it placebo.
Like if someone actually doesn't believe it, but they're imagining that they're like, okay, I'll imagine that there are.
Imaginal work. Yeah. Yeah, we can call it a placebo. Sure. The word placebo, I often hear people use in a dismissive context. But that doesn't mean it has to be that. They're like, oh, it's just a placebo effect. And it's like, what this thing, whatever we're pointing to, is so powerful to change people's lives. Like, come on.
Yeah, I find it funny when people are like, oh, it's just the placebo effect. It's like, but it worked.
It's everything. Like,
but it helped them.
Yeah, people with belief tend to do better. And surgeries, like all kinds of things, like hope and faith are so important as psychological phenomena. Yeah. I have a coaching client right now who I'll speak very vaguely about because I want to be respectful of her privacy. But she's moved through like an especially difficult health chapter that's included like hospitalization and needing a care team. And she has a background in quite advanced neuroscience. And it's been wonderful to like work together and have her come in with like this kind of template of like, okay, I know the research points to the fact that like I'm supposed to have more faith, but like, how do we get there? Like, I'm a science person. Like, how do we do it? And watching her willingness to like incrementally implement like things that really resemble a prayer practice, totally agnostically, and watching her improve. It's been amazing.
Wow. How do you implement a agnostic prayer practice?
Well, I like the language of psychology because I think as a society we've accepted that, even though when you really delve into the etymology, psychology, the psyche, it's soul work. Psyche means soul. So it's quite mystic. But we in America have accepted like, oh, psychology is a thing you do, like no matter who you are. So what do I do with her? I might say things like, looking at the evidence you brought in, even aligning with the belief system you already have, that setting aside time for like positive visualization tends to be useful. And then with that frame, what if you just, say positive affirmations, imagine and visualize like your cells functioning, like, anything, as long as the frame of we're totally acknowledging this may simply be an exercise in imagination. Let's do it anyway.
Right. That's cool.
I find it really magic.
Yeah, that's amazing. It is magic. It's a great example of we create our reality. I think.
Yeah, I noticed hesitancy in myself with like signing on to that wholesale. You probably noticed it too.
I did.
Why am I hesitant? The times in my life when I've really believed that I have the power to shape my reality are some of the weirdest times in my life. Like from the place of like isolation and self-empowerment, I can go in some like weird directions. So for me, I found it really helpful to co-create reality with the wisest people I know and trust practices older than myself. Or I can get a little too grand for my own best interests.
What? Whoa. Example of too grand for your own self-interest?
Oh, okay. So when I was deeply involved in plant medicine work, which I was framing in graduate school as like an anthropological study, but I was all in. I was part of the experience and the journey and taking psychedelics all the time. I was running with a crew that would layer things sometimes irresponsibly, in my view. It seemed like it worked really well for some people, but I had experiences where in my nervous system, layering this medicine on top of this medicine on top of this medicine, having done this one 7 days before, was too much for my system, right? Mm-hmm. And in the deepest of those experiences, I had an experience that I am very comfortable calling psychedelic psychosis now that I'm a few years out of it. Like I had a delusion because of a vision I had that I was the creator of this universe.
Oh. And
I felt so sad about what a terrible job I'd done. And I ran around like crying about this. So that's what I mean about being too grand.
I'm laughing. It sounds like it might have been a scary experience.
It was, and beautiful also. Yeah. And I'm being kind of pat in the summary, you know, I'm being a little like humorous about it and hyperbolic even. Like I didn't lose sight of my rational mind throughout. Like I even consulted with like a psychiatrist friend and I was like, this is what's going on in my thought patterns. Like, what do you think we should do? Like at the time. And he was like, well, because you can describe that you're aware that it's non-normative, you know, like you don't seem like a danger to yourself or others. You can just like, you know, like keep doing gentle habits and see what comes, right? And I also think I've had useful frameworks, even from like religion that I've studied, that helped me to not contextualize it like totally narcissistically. Like within Judaism and Kabbalah, there's kind of this belief that maybe we all contain a fragment of the divine, or in particularly heightened states, we can have an experience that's like prophecy, where we're given a vision that's like from the mind of the creator. That doesn't mean we are the creator, but maybe we get to see a piece of that landscape. So even as I was in the midst of this grandiose psychotic delusion, I still was like, well, and other people probably contain another component of the tapestry that is this universe.
Other people, amazing.
And yeah, it was also really painful.
What was the painful part about it?
So when I was in that vision, that like creator myth first person vision, it was not, you know, people who've never done psychedelics might have like seen a movie where you watch people take drugs and they see this whole thing come out in the visual spectrum. But experientially, when you're in it, it's a multi-sensory experience, you know, pain, vertigo, nausea, like the whole body is caught up in this. And also your feeling landscape gets really heightened. So the most intense panic you've ever felt might be there and then magnified, right? So like it's quite intense. So I was, do you want to hear the whole story, the whole vision?
I am open to it. If you...
Okay. So I was transported to kind of like a space that was like very different from this world. Like, it didn't have a lot of sight in this space. It was kind of just like energies commingling. I had a sense of I was a soul amidst other souls. And I also had a palpable sense that we were outside of what I know as like space and time. And I kind of knew my mind was making up an approximation of that just so I could understand it, but it was like beyond these things. And I knew that I was not the oldest of these energies. I was kind of like new in comparison to these other energies. And I had an instinct within me that was like, I really want to try the creation thing again. I want to try the life experiment again. And something more ancient and more whole than me was like, oh, don't do it. Like, it's always just as bad as it is good. Like, don't do the life thing again. And I was like, no, I'm gonna try. Like, maybe this time it'll be different. And I was like a cut scene in a movie, like transported to a completely different place. And I want to call it almost like blank canvas, but really it was more like endless void. And immediately, as soon as I was transported there, I had this feeling like I've made a huge mistake because I was no longer surrounded by the felt sense of the all and like being part of this like beautiful, nourishing everything among like everything, every soul I'd ever known, everything I'd ever loved together. I was suddenly alone in a void. And I knew, because of the palpable sense of being separate from the divinity of the all, I could only create from loneliness now. So like I was there, and then either because of the patterns of the stories I've been told or because it's how it happened, who knows, it was this very linear, like the biblical story of the 7 days of creation, like separating out dark from light was first. And there was a thing about different elements like water and earth and fire and air that definitely happened. And as I was doing these things, again, it was not the visual spectrum. It wasn't like I was standing there with a wand, like doing all of this. Instead, it was being birthed from my body itself, like coming out of my orifices or cutting off parts of me. Like I had to create from me. And it felt like being dissected to like make anything. So it's like very painful and excruciating. Whoa. And I know, because I've been told about this afterward by the people who were in the room with me, that like my hands were being held by a dear friend throughout this experience, and that I was like screaming bloody murder. Yeah, these experiences are not for the faint of heart. I lost control of my normal human control, and I peed myself. Like it was just like, it was wild. But in my own mind and my own sense of where I was in this deep hallucination, I went through this creation experience. And at a certain point, it was like I went into labor, like I was experiencing contractions, and I could feel and witness how like pain within me was turned into like all of the worst things about this world, like human violence, illness, decay, entropy, even like pedophilia. Like the things that scare me the most felt like they had come out of me, and all of the shame surrounding that. And then I like wept a really long time. And then I think I felt something else enter in when I was in this total surrender of like, what a mistake I've made. And wow, I'm just kind of putting this together now as we're talking. I feel almost like it's like my own relationship to divinity, like in recognition that I could not create a good enough world separate from the divine that I'd left. It was like I reached through space and time to try to like get some of that energy back that's not mine, that's like bigger than me. And I heard music come in, and I could feel story come in, and love, and like all of the ways that we as human beings recreate being part of a greater whole. And it was really also very like special and important to me. Yeah. So that's my story.
Yeah. Oh, the doozy. And I totally see why you're more into co-creation with people.
Yeah, I don't like going it alone. The world gets ruined when I try on my own. You can't have that.
And also, what a beautiful story of, I guess, a reconnection with divinity and with higher power, higher truth, higher, just something that is holding us all.
Yeah, that has been really important to me in just like living a life that's good, believing in something like that. And when I have trouble believing in God the way religion might outline God, I still really like the Jungian concept that there's a collective. Like when you get like way down into the unconscious, you don't just find like drives within you, like Freud might say. You find that you're part of a collective whole, that we're like co-creating reality together, and that feels really special to me.
What was that first thing? Drives within you?
Oh yeah, Freud has this idea that like if you dive enough into someone through like psychoanalysis, what you find are drives, like the death drive, the sex drive, like that we're kind of these instinctual beasts. I find that insufficient. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. I'll have to sit with that one. I've never heard that before.
I mean, I can tap into the truth that there are animalistic drives within myself for sure. Like I survive like everyone else. I get hungry. I need things. But I think there's something going on that's grander than that. I hope.
Yeah, I think so. In my pinky dip into this concept, it feels like it to me.
What was it like for you to hear all of that? I know it was a big story.
Totally engrossed that's just the first word that comes into my mind is wrapped, ARAPT, wrapped. It was like getting a little peek into you, which is always awesome to experience of another person. And I love hearing medicine stories. It's one of my favorite things. So it's right up my alley, and I was really grateful that I got to hear one of yours.
Cool. I'm glad to hear that. There's a little bit of an old fear that lives in me that feels kind of like, it's almost like it's like a feminine paranoia that if I let people know how witchy I am, I might be burnt at the stake, like that. So I like to do a little check again of like, do I seem crazy? Like, if I share too much here, am I going to be institutionalized? Like, you know?
Not by me. Not by me. I mean, I've definitely shared some stories on this podcast that I'm sure some people in my life, who probably haven't heard it yet, but if they heard it, they'd be like, I don't know about this guy. I think he lost it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very driven to do research, to be in touch with hard scientists, to like stay sounding sensible, because I think I have an equally powerful, like mystic mind. Like you, as a person who does healing work, I'm so aware that my senses pick up on stuff that other people don't seem to be talking about.
Mhm.
Let me make sure I sound really sane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Is that from is that are you from a religious background?
Not especially. My parents are Midwesterners and like professionals. I grew up in Los Angeles. They're both like ambitious people. I had some secular Judaism growing up. And there were like tarot cards in the bookshelves and crystals everywhere. And when later, like, the carpets got changed out for different floors, someone had written spells on each of the doors, you know? It was just like, it was interesting.
Wow, yeah.
Little rituals were happening all around.
So where would you where would you say that that fear comes from then?
Oh, my fear of being crazy.
Being too witchy, yeah, crazy. If you want to go that route.
Well, I think from like psychiatric condemnation, like having big feelings at 12, 13, 14. Even younger, I had night terrors when I was like 11. And I was not embodied for those experiences, but I was told I would like even like speak in different languages. And I don't speak other languages. So this obviously like frightened my family, and I was medicated. And
okay.
I think, yeah, being in touch with things that we don't have good explanations for in Western culture looks like insanity. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would do it.
Yeah. And it's been very helpful to me to like do formal study, to like, I got a degree from Antioch University in clinical psychology. And at one point, I went with a research team to South America to an institute in Sao Paulo called the Pineal Mind Institute, where this pretty well-renowned doctor named Dr. Sergio de Oliveira, who also like lectures at Harvard, treats mental illness like schizophrenia as though it's a disease of mediumship.
Disease of mediumship.
Yeah. So the idea there is that people who we label schizophrenic are able to sense and see things that other people cannot. And it's really useful for them to have a community and medication and things to kind of like ground their sensory perception in consensus. Because to dive into that work without that kind of grounding is dangerous.
So the naming disease of mediumship is that they're saying this person is a medium, but there's something off in the system that is causing an ungroundedness in the mediumship.
Right. Yeah. So they're mediums who don't have control over their powers and are getting like hijacked by entities. Yeah. I went in so skeptical. I went in thinking, well, we know from Western scientific studies that if you give a schizophrenic person, let me rephrase. If you kind of collude with their narrative about themselves, they're more med compliant. So if you give someone a positive story about their insanity, they're more likely to do what you say. I saw it as a technique of manipulation. I was really skeptical going in. And then over time, because of what I witnessed and experienced directly in myself, I was like, sure seems like an effective way to do things. There's something going on here, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think so.
I think that's really cool. I can see it. It makes sense to me, that framing of schizophrenia.
Yeah.
I'm prone to very easily buy into something like that, though.
Okay. Fair enough.
If it feels true in my body.
Mm-hmm. Does that get you in trouble ever? Like, do you believe things you shouldn't have?
Do I believe things I shouldn't have? Well, I've quite a few times believed that a woman wanted to be in a relationship with me and she didn't.
Mm.
And I probably shouldn't have believed that they did.
Yeah, I've fallen into that fantasy too.
But the more mystical level, is that what you're asking?
I guess so. I don't know. I always want to question my beliefs, I guess. I want to like really investigate things thoroughly before buying it. I want to make sure they're actually authentically useful. So while I'm sure to like people viewing or listening to this podcast, my ideas might seem like really, really out there. Another component of my personality is to rigorously analyze, argue, and question things before even trying them. And then it's like only after I try them that I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, it seems like it works. Damn it. So I was a pain in the ass when I was at this institute studying. I was so hard on Dr. Sergio.
Wow. I wonder if I bet that there was a part of him that appreciated that.
I don't know. I'd love to talk to him again and find out.
It sounds like a manifestor thing to do too.
I am who I am. You know, what can I do?
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Let's see. I want to delve into that question though on me. I only if it doesn't land in my body as strongly possibly true, do I do a little more exploration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like here's the wild thing. Excuse me. You tell me this about schizophrenia, and it lands in my body as, oh yeah, that seems like it could very well be true. So easily. Mm-hmm. Someone comes up to me and is like, Jesus Christ is God and the Lord and Savior and died and rose again. And I'm like, I don't know. That doesn't feel right in my body.
Mm. Part of that's personal history, right? Like, didn't you have a Christian background?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is personal history. But also what I've come to learn in my healing is that I didn't believe it from the get-go.
Okay.
As a kid, but I pretended like I did because that's the only way I could have survived my childhood. Mm.
I want to ask you about something you said on a podcast. I'm not going to pretend I didn't hear it. I heard you say
I appreciate that you listened to so many episodes.
It's interesting. It's inherently interesting to me. So there was an episode, I think the one where you were talking to Nicole, where you mentioned that during some kind of, I think, psychedelic experience, Jesus came to you. Huh? What do you make of that?
I make of it that I was what's the word? It's like pausing. I make of it that the spirit of Jesus came to me, literally came to me, and connected with me in this moment and helped pull fear out of my system regarding Christianity and religion. And then told me, I mean, it's exactly what happened. And then told me that he did not want a religion. Mm-hmm. His intent was not to have a religion created from what he was teaching. And what I make of it is that is exactly what happened. That's truly what happened. That it wasn't some weird metaphor lesson.
Okay, let's go with that, and we'll say that's the literal truth, just for the sake of this conversation. That's Great. The literal truth. Of course, you'd feel tension if someone came up to you proselytizing about Jesus, because you're like, but homie told me it's not a religion. Like, knock it off.
But I felt this way before he came and told me this
Oh, okay.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which could also be said that, well, that's why you had a vision of Jesus telling you that, because it's reinforcing what you already believed.
Mm-hmm.
Except for the fact, and here's the thing, about about plant medicine, especially plant medicine, I guess I've been doing ayahuasca, San Pedro, Syrian Rue. I have been in the presence of many spirits, not just Jesus. My grandpa has come to me. I've been in the presence of Archangel Michael. He's come to me, and and the reason I can say that it's not just a mental thing that this happened and a projection or a figment of my just a mental realization is that the physical energy of the whole space around me and my distinct physical reaction to the presence and power of such a being like Archangel Michael is undeniable that this was a spirit beyond what I can imagine. And that's the same thing that happened when the light opened up and Jesus was there.
Right. And I've had similar experiences too. And in fact, I kind of had one during that healing break with the flooding with light and the relief from pain. And the counter argument I get from my skeptical friends, and what happens to me when I toggle back to my rational side, is I think like, well, what if that just points to how miraculously powerful our individual minds are to shift things that palpably?
Okay.
And for me, the part that is a through line between both things, whether it's like literally true out there in the world or it's a miracle of the mind, is like both are great to me. Both are like hallelujah, you know?
Amen. And I think that I would respond to that as, if that's how it works for you, that gives you this amazing connection to healing and growth and spiritual connection, fantastic that that's how it's presented to you. This is how it worked for me.
Yeah. When I do that, when I go into the skeptical side, that's me like code switching for the sake of an imagined audience. My real beliefs are much more aligned with yours.
Well, you presented it as your skeptical friends.
Right.
So I was speaking to them when I was saying good for you, with, I will acknowledge, a little bit of anger zest in there.
Little stank on it. Yeah.
A little bit of that going on.
Yeah. That's okay.
I've had that experience talking to my therapist before, where I brought a journey to him and he tried to make it a mental, like, oh, it's just what's going on. It's just because that's what you imagined, and that's what's going on in your mind. And it shut me down I shut down.
Yeah.
Because I was like, and then finally I had to this is when I had to learn to be like, no, this is what is true to me, and this is what has meaning to me. So this is the way it happened. And I had to be like, I really need for you in this space to be with what is true for me. Because that's what is healing. That's where my healing is, not in trying to make it mean something else.
This is important. I'm really glad I'm hearing this from you. Thank you. I'm having just current in my life right now process of switching therapists for a very similar reason. Yeah. He
met me in it, and he shifted, and it's amazing.
I'm really glad you had that experience.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. I've been with him over 10 years. It's amazing.
Wow. You see, you do have long-term relationships.
Yeah, when I only see them once a week for an hour. uh, yeah, you know what? It's also, I want to state that it's not just these powerful, beautiful, positive, light spirits that I've been in contact with. I have come across some pretty nasty, scary, darker entities and spirits in plant medicine journeys too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it's scary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. I took a really, really, really long break for that reason. From healing work as well. There was a period of time when I was doing a lot of energy work here in Los Angeles. And I think that the turning point for me was someone informed me that they had flown in because they wanted me to work on them. And I was like, whoa, this is too much for me. I can't deal with that level of investment in, yeah, like needing something to change. It scared me, being given that much responsibility in someone's life. And alongside that, I was experiencing a lot of what my friend Adi calls the backwash, like how you can take on other people's symptoms. Have you had this experience?
I have early on.
You've
I
gotten
have.
really good at protecting yourself.
Yeah, I'm able to
Yeah.
I'm able to move it out now. Now, like if it comes in me, I'm able to purge it out quickly.
That's cool. Yeah, maybe I could learn some things from you. Mm.
How long are you saying like, what's that experience like for you to take some of the backwash, as you say?
So I had an experience recently because I've dipped my toes back into not professionally doing healing work, but doing healing work for friends. So I had an experience a couple of weeks ago of working on a friend, and she very specifically had a lot going on in her like forehead and sinuses, and we worked with it, I think, effectively. And then either because of empathy or because of something going on, I had so much attention on my own pain in that area for like a few days afterward. And I had done the things I think of as my protective practices around working on her. And the after effect was subtle. It was so manageable, but I still felt like I'd gotten kind of like in there with her in a way, almost like where the way I work when I'm healing someone is it's almost like I'm trying on their sensations in their body. And it's hard for me to like totally like step out again all at once.
Right. As you were saying that, reminded of something that happened actually in January to me.
What happened?
I did work on a client, and this person was stating that they felt like there was an outside force that was at work in their system.
Yeah.
And we did work on, and then I worked on this person. And after they left that night, I was actually going to do a journey of my own and with someone. And when I was doing that, as the medicine was coming on, I think it was Rue, as the medicine was coming on, I felt this darkness in me and realized that I had taken on this, and the entity had an attachment from working with this person. And so I spent the first 15, 20 minutes working with the plant medicine to remove this attachment from me. And it's not pleasant work.
Yeah. But you trust yourself to do it.
Yeah, I do. In this case, I do now. In the beginning, when I was just learning it, of course I needed help, but now I've learned how to work with the medicine, my own tools and abilities, and
Yeah.
then also calling on help like from Archangel Michael, who's a great help in cutting things loose from you. He's got that amazing sword.
Great. Yeah, I don't have that degree of trust in my skills or my relationships to positive forces. So caution seems useful to me for me.
It sounds right. Sounds like a good way to go. Some are like more powerful than others, where you need another set of shamanic powers in the room with you.
Another healer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that helps.
It does. It does.
I'm thinking back on that thing from my journey where that ancient energy was like, don't do the creation experiment. It's always just as bad as it is good. And I think some part of me still believes that. Like, I don't trust necessarily that good wins out. And I wonder if that lack of faith means that dark energies overpower me sometimes.
That puts a lot of pressure on your faith and a lot of
It's
responsibility.
another way of being with it. I would love another way of being with it.
I guess what I hear in that is that because your faith in it isn't necessarily as strong as you think it should be in order to resist or trust that the higher powers are going to be there, that everything hinges on your faith, and not that there are really powerful and beings on both sides that are constantly at battle, whether we believe them or not.
Okay, so I can buy that. Yeah, there are powerful forces at battle, whether I believe in them or not. I can be with that. What helps you to trust that when you call upon Archangel Michael, he will be there and help you?
Oh, I guess because of the result.
Yeah.
When I first started doing it, I was like, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous that I'm asking this. This is not going to happen. This isn't true. This isn't real. But I just kept doing it.
Yeah, I think increasingly in my life, and I still want to toggle back and forth between like the faith conversation we're having and like the more scientific things that give me reassurance. But in my life now, more and more, I do have the experience that the results I get are good in my life. Like when I use my best communication skills, when I call upon friends, when I do these practices that I find so useful, more and more the results are good, like sometimes really powerfully, inexplicably good. But when I look at my history, I do see these like pockets of time when like the darkness won, like when I was in a space that had more evil than good. And I just feel so sad for the Hanna who had to live that, and also like all of the people in the world who are still like stuck in that paradigm right now, where like no matter what they call upon, the dark has more power.
I feel sad that she had to experience that, but I'm also in awe of how strong she was to be able to hold it and move through it.
Well, yes, I am literally alive.
So I don't know. I guess that's just I feel a lot of gratitude for that, Hannah, who may have been overtaken by darkness, but she's the one that survived it, and she's the one that battled it.
Mm. It's a really meaningful thing to say. Thank you. Right now I'm in touch with my own sadness, though, that I took on some of those qualities when I was in the dark. I wasn't kind to everyone. I hurt some people pretty badly. And I have remorse for that. I really do.
Yeah.
I'm really, really trying to be better now. Try to do a lot of good.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if as you sit with the sadness of it, and you let that emotion move through and express itself, if at some point underneath that, you might even go through some anger, you might go through some other emotions, if at the bottom of it there's, what was the word? Oh man, I had it. Forgiveness and compassion for her too. Not by all means, I'm not saying force it. It's impossible to, but I think it's in there somewhere after these emotions are felt.
Yeah, I think so too. I've had moments of that kind of grace, and I think there will be more.
Yeah. I also want to go as far as to say, I think it's okay that she did shitty things.
Okay.
Not in the fact that like rooting on shitty things.
Yeah.
But she was in a bad place from what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
It was a dark place.
Yeah.
But it's hard to navigate that no matter who you are.
Of course. Yeah. I guess my mind right now thematically is with, I'm almost like circling back to the start of our conversation again, where I'm like reckoning with these ideas about good and evil and harm and accountability. And because I really strive to be honest and reckon with my own shadow, I'm always looking for, okay, is the thing I hate in a figure like Alice Munro part of me? Like, have I covered up for someone's crimes because I wanted to be close to their love, which is something she did? And I think, yes, I think not to that extent, not with that kind of harm, but in a small way, like I see that in me, and I'm really in an ongoing way struggling with, how do we as a community and a society hold people accountable for wrongdoing while acknowledging that they're like not that fundamentally different from us? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. This is good. This is good. May I share something?
Yeah.
Totally in relation to this.
Yeah.
So recently there was this backlash to the opening ceremony of the Olympics, where there were drag queens in a pose at a long table that seemed to resemble The Last Supper, the painting The Last Supper by Da Vinci. And Christians are in an uproar about it. And they're really angry. And they're saying that their religion was mocked and that these people are demons and evil. And they're like anger. They're in anger. And I'm triggered by their anger. And I'm I like feel it boiling in my system. And I've been in this journey of, I want to make a post that says that, like, to shake them and help them see it the way I see it. And as I was in that journey of trying to think, what am I going to say? Like, there's history, there's art history, there's Greek history, there's mythology, all involved in this. And how can I explain this to them so that they'll see it? And then I go, wait a minute. Let's just look at why they're angry. They're angry because there's some wound in there that they're protecting. There's a trauma in there that they're protecting. There's a feeling of unsafety that they're protecting with their anger. And then I thought, what can I do to help them in that? And then I said, wait a minute, I'm angry. Why am I angry at them? I'm angry because there's a part of me that feels unsafe from their anger. And I thought, if I'm going to help them, I first have to help myself. I first have to go in and look at my anger and why I'm angry, and then get in touch with the little inner child in me that is hurting and scared, and give him what he needs, because he's having a trigger based on religious trauma. And when I did that and I sat with it, I had compassion for the other people who were angry. And I saw thousands, if not millions, of scared inner children that just needed their person, their adult, to take care of them and hold them. And the awesome thing about this is there's a passage in the Bible that came to me as I was doing this. That's, why are you paying attention to the splinter in their eye when you have a plank in your own? First, take care of the plank in your own eye so that you will be able to help them with the splinter in theirs. So that's my answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's the answer to that.
It does. I'm really fascinated by how, with all of your tension with Christianity, you still weave in those lessons.
Yeah. The lessons from the Bible. I was sitting with that too, and I'll tell you why. It's because I don't believe that. I believe those lessons are really important, and I think that even a lot of there's so many beautiful lessons in the Bible. I think that they're misinterpreted to the extent that there's some outside source, and that we're working with and like sin, and like there were sinners, and then there's an outside source, and to take the plank out of our own eyes to stop sin is just like stop sinning in order to help them not sin. But my interpretation of all is, we have all experienced trauma. And in order for me to help you with your trauma, I have to first take care and hold my own trauma. And I also don't believe that Jesus was saying that he was God and wanted a religion. Obviously, we talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
I think that he was saying, when he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, the only way to the Father is through me. He's not saying I'm your savior and I'm God. He's saying he is. I would say he is has an attachment, a connection to God. I have a connection to God. You have a connection to God. He's not saying that I am the only way to get to God. He's saying that if I look into my truth, my personal truth as a human being, if I look into how I can connect to the healed higher self that I am, then I will connect with God. And so if I, as Joel, not Jesus, connect to the healed inner higher self that I have in me, and work through all the trauma and hold it all and integrate it all the shadow, all the light, I will be more connected to God and have a higher experience.
Yeah. Yeah, in that way, it's very similar to something like Buddhism, isn't it? To get connected to the higher self to that extent.
To what?
Buddhism?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think they were all saying that.
I agree with you. And alongside that, it's like for me with my personal psychology or whatever else it is, I need to have these moments where I can be like, I actually don't have the answers and I don't feel aligned. Like I want something outside of me to protect me anyway. Like I kind of need
Amen.
that. Yeah.
I do too. I still call for Archangel Michael to come and protect me. Because sometimes we do. We need something outside of us to protect us.
Yeah. It helps me.
100%.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I also, yeah, I totally want something outside of me to protect me while I'm doing the work to heal what's blocking me from getting to like the truth of me.
Yes. I agree.
Great. I'm glad. Woo. I don't think I've ever gone into preach mode like that before.
I don't feel preached at.
Great.
And I shared with you a lot about my frameworks of belief. So it seems reciprocal to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very interested in people's frameworks of belief.
It's cool.
Like anything we need to do to get through this life, provided we're not hurting other people with it.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. That's another thing. We're all fucking scared. And we're all looking for something to believe in or hold on to that's going to help us feel protected and safe in this world and understand it better.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel good when someone else is saying that their way it should be your way.
Yeah. And I've run into that too. I agree with you. But in that same way where I'm always like, and let me see how I'm shadowy too,
Mm-hmm.
I've proselytized to people in very recent memory.
Mm-hmm.
I can get that way even about like, like you're in the hospital for all these reasons. Please stop eating sugar. Like just stop. Like you're hurting yourself. You know, I can get preachy too.
Uh-huh. I think that's why I said, oh, I've never gotten preaching like that before, because I think that there was part of me that heard myself saying all this, being like, oh, you're saying it like this is the right way, then everybody should be this way. And I recognize that. I also know that my parents and I have different beliefs about this. And they want me to change the way I believe. And I've been so angry at them about that for most of my life. But then when I was doing the work, I was like, oh my God, I've been wanting them to change to make me more comfortable too. And it's a two-way street. It's like, holy shit, that is really fucking hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And then for me, the biggest piece of the puzzle seems to be we still have to take action anyway. Like some part of life requires courage and change. I don't think it's sufficient to be like, well, everyone's flawed. Let's just like all do our own thing.
Agreed.
Like sometimes I've found it vital to say like, actually, like your behavior is not good here. Like, please stop.
100% agree with you. Yeah. I'm not definitely, I don't stop at, oh, we're all flawed. I have a really strong conviction. That's why about healing. That's why my podcast is called A Little Room for Healing. Yes. I really want everybody in the world to make just make a little room for healing.
Yes.
As a start. Just as a start.
It's a good stake in the ground. Yeah, I'm here for that mission.
Yeah.
Glad you're doing it.
Thank you. Glad to have you aboard. Woo! All right. Feel like it's winding down.
It's my sense too. Is something else wanted, or is something feeling not quite finished?
No. not on the, not of along like meat of conversation. I just want to, first I want to check with you to see if you have anything else that feels like you want to say.
I want to share my gratitude. Like, I'm grateful you had me here on the podcast. I'm grateful we've spent all this time. And I'm grateful for the healing work you did on me and the depth of conversation we were able to have. We've spoken about a lot of topics that are like deeply meaningful to me that I've contemplated for a long time. And okay, this is why I'm saying it. It's felt very important to me, especially in the last couple of months, to find ways to bring what I've been sitting with forward, like to say them out loud instead of keeping them inside. And this actually feels connected to the body block you were working on with me, this like tension between heart and throat.
Wow.
And to have the opportunity to speak about these things with you in a way where I'm invited to bring both my mysticism and my interest in empirical truth feels really grounding and like freedom. And I really, really appreciate that.
That's wonderful to hear. I was going to take that in for a second.
Dare I say, we've had a little room for healing.
We did. And I want to share my gratitude for you as well. I'm grateful for the way we navigated the first half of this episode to come to a place where the conversation went really deep and it felt really rich and really connected to each other. That I think was an incredible journey that we went on together. So thank you for your openness and being in that with me, and your openness to share all the things that were coming up for you and all of the ideas and thoughts that you were having that you wanted to share. I'm really grateful that that came across, because I was really, it really felt good for me to receive what you were saying and what you were sharing. I'm really glad that we did this. I'm really, really glad that we did this. And I'm really happy with the way it went, like so deeply. I feel really good about what just happened.
Me too. Thank you, Joel.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being on. And to all of you out there, I invite you to make a little room for healing in your lives. And, oh wait, one thing actually, before I sign off, is do you do work with people still in any capacity? And is there a way that one could reach out to you if they want to, if you have space for more clients or more people?
Sure. Yeah. So in my capacity as a licensed marriage and family therapist, I do therapy for people, psychotherapy for people who live within the state of California. And I do have some space in my caseload. That can be either on Zoom or in person in West Los Angeles. I also do coaching work for people who are not geographically here. And I have a menu of services that I provide, including Reiki work, tarot work, astrology work, that one can review at my website, ritualintegration.com.
Fantastic. Awesome. Okay. And I would love to hear any response, thoughts, reactions to this episode. Spotify now has an offering on the episode page where you can make a comment directly on Spotify. So if you feel inclined, I would love for any of you listening out there to make a comment. And also you can find me on Instagram at A Little Room for Healing. We can engage there, and I would love to hear more about anybody's experiences. And with that, now I offer you an invitation of finding a little room for healing in your lives. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks for making a little room for my podcast. I'd love to be a part of your journey too. Follow me on Instagram at A Little Room for Healing for news, updates, offerings, and connection. To book a session with me, go to www.alittleroomforhealing.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, follow the link at the bottom of the episode description. Have a beautiful day.